welcome to Flooring Models Kit Review Time. Today we've got Takom's latest release of the 1/35 scale 432 Mk3 Bulldog. As we can see, it is an absolutely lovely kit. A lot of obviously collectors been waiting for this particular one to come out. I've been asked to build this one more, I think, than any other piece of armour, so I can definitely see myself actually building this kit in the near future. I've driven one of these things as well, weirdly, but absolutely beautiful to have the full armoured up version, as we can see down here. So we've got the armoured front and protection systems, front and rear, things like that on this particular one. So running around the box, usual thing, we've got some of the ones here. So we've got the Scots Guards from 2008, and we've got the reconnaissance platoons there from Takom for two of those particular ones as well. Okay, so you've actually got Robert the Bruce, okay, and the normal one down in here. So you pick your markings from that one, as we can see. Kit number for this one is, that's a good number, what's kit number? Oh yeah, 2067. And then down on here we got a sprue layout and usual bits and pieces you can see just down on that. So in the box we have got the lid just there. Quite a nice sturdy box, as we can see, as always. It looks like we have a guide, which is quite nice. So that'll be for doing the track work, one believes, or something else like that. It's the usual thing for it. So if we have a dig down in here, lots over there. We've got our little pack, as always. So if we have a quick delve in here. Okay, so what we actually have is the instruction manual. A couple of bits of photo etch and things. So there we go. Usual thing from sort of Takom's way of doing it, this beautiful sort of pull-out booklet. Usual bits and pieces down on there. We have got some of the paints required for this one, and then obviously we've got the parts list, as we can see just down on here, and then it is a case of getting straight into it. So we've got a little bit of suspension work, sort of almost a one-piece lower hull system, and then down in here, we just saw it just then, we actually got this guide for lining up all the suspension system to be at the right angles and everything else like that, which is a nice touch, so you don't have any sort of alignment issues with those falling out of alignment. On the other page, as you can see, exactly the same, adding more parts and pieces, and then obviously you've got the road wheels going in, and then obviously the actual drive sprockets, and again alignments, making sure we're all lined up on both sides as those all go through. A little bit stuck together, and then using that same guide system quite nicely, we can actually then build the actual track system around it. Again, it's all not workable links, it's all fixed in place, so if you can do it this way, it actually helps it out. And again, really nice that we get the guide in here, a very good touch if you are doing these solid ones in. I'm sure you can get obviously replacement workable tracks for this from the usual sort of suspects out there. So again, more suspension and parts being added, and then obviously the track system being then slotted over the actual road wheels, with the actual return or idler wheel and the drive sprocket all been putting in one. So quite a nice way of doing it. And then obviously we've got some track layout just down in here. Then it's getting on with the rest of it. So as you can imagine, we've got the side skirts going on there, and then the piping work, things like that, the rear door being put in, opening up some critical holes, got a little bit of photo etch going down, fitted in there, and then we've actually got the stow boxes on the back. Okay, and then working our way through, so we've got the actual sort of fenders being fitted to it, and again photo etch being used extensively on there, and then we've got doors and various things being put on for this one. Then we've got the armour, so we've got the up armour system being put onto that one as well, all being fitted in, and we've got the grille sets going in there as well, tow cables, usual bits and pieces you can imagine right the way over this thing, being a modern piece of armour. Headlights being fitted down into there. Again, lots of extensive use of photo etch for some more of these detailed parts, and then obviously more lights going on there. Inside and outside, sorry, of the actual hatch system, of the actual upper deck, I should say, being fitted down into there like that, and then more parts of this one going in, and then again more of the up armour system being fitted onto the sides, and then clamping all of that together in there like that. Then we're over to the other side, so we've got the grills going on, all the various parts on this one, and then being fitted down, all the front pieces being put in, the actual top going down onto it, and then we've got the stowage boxes and things like that all being fitted onto the back, and then the rear one going in there like that, then completing that part of the build just through there. Okay, next up, obviously more parts being fitted into this, the grille armour being fitted all around the vehicle, and then as you can imagine, all your lumps, bumps, hatches and sort of equipment all being fitted onto the top. We've got the sort of mortar hatch down here at the back as well being fitted down in there, and again you can have that open or closed. And then over on the other side, obviously down in the closed position, and then obviously we've got the up armour and the urban sort of survival kit system being put in there for the turret and the guns and everything else, as you can imagine, right the way through. Then we've got your markings, so as you can imagine, pretty much sand yellow all over for these things, right the way through, and then obviously the differences between for decal placements and things like that. Then we've got a little bit about obviously other vehicles coming out in the future. And then the usual thing, we've got the diagram at the back. Again, it's a shame it's not got full interior detail and stuff like that, but you could obviously scratch build your one into that one and things, but this one really is an external point of view for this one. Down in here, I won't get it out, we have got some already pre-bent, it looks like. I don't know if they're supposed to be bent. I think they probably are. It's quite a nice touch that they've actually taken the time to roll those, but we've actually got those fender systems as well, so those are done, and there's those headlights and grills being fitted down on there like that. So again, nice little bit of photo etch just for that. Extremely thin, as you can imagine. Decals, not much to it. Usual thing with armour. Very sort of, you know, sparse on these. But we've got Rob Roy and Robert the Bruce, obviously with the Scottish theme going along there, and some numbering, as you might imagine. Okay, so parts wise, let's have a look. Here we go. Let's start with the hull. As you can see, just by the size of this isn't massive on the old scaling thing. We're going to be looking at all out size, around about 15 centimetres. It's not the world's biggest tank, let's face it, but small and beautifully formed, we think. Okay, so straight off the bat down in here, we can see we've got some nice little bit of checkerboard and things like that going down on there in the interior, as you can imagine. Nice sharp details, all of those, and as we were saying, it wouldn't be rocket science to put that one together. This is why we have that lining up issue, as you might imagine down on here. When you look at it, you can see how that's not exactly positive locking positions. So because they're slightly a soft fit like that, you can just line them all up, get it all in there, line it through, and then you can glue from the outside now. But generally, loads of detail on the bottom half of the hull plates and everything else. But once it's all been done and taken care of, you're going to end up with something very, very nice indeed. Top plate, nice sharp details. Again, it's lacking in detail, but obviously you're going to be adding all of that as you make your way through, because most of this will be covered up with various parts. Usual things, quite lumpy and chunky, some of these sprue locating tabs and that, but they're all on nice flat, easy to get to, snip off surfaces, and some of these other ones have been taken off already. Okay, but again, down on the inside you've got some basic, although you've got large ejector pins down in here, you could easily remove those and have this as a pull off top to show off some of that detail on the inside, just like that. Okay, so making our way through the bag full of sprues. Usual thing with Takom, they do tend to, if I can find my way in, is this not a plasticky open one? No, it is a cut job. No, it is a plasticky open one. There it is. They tend to have quite large sprues. The actual parts are nicely put on, and they tend to do this thing on these where, you know, some of the parts you might think that's very large, chunky sort of ejector pins holding these in and everything else, but actually they're usually taken care of very nicely, and the ones going to the smaller parts are a little bit more refined, like these up here. As you can see, they're actually smaller little locating sort of tabs and things like that onto these. So right off at the top, if we wake our way around, as you can see, some of the items, we've got sort of GPMG at the top here, things like that, and then usual thing, if we make our way through, we can see some of these ones. We've got no real texture on this armour plating, okay, but we have got down on here on this sort of up armour system down on the front, all the parts beautifully done, no problem at all. Very sharp, crisp details on them, as you tend to find with Takom. Very nice indeed. But it's what we were saying about some of them, you can look at these and they think it's quite large, you know, sort of locating or sprue, you know, gates and things, but on the parts where it does matter, like down in here, it's quite a refined one as it goes in, so it's easy clean up and things like that. Generally no problem at all. Down on the inside of this one, you can probably see we've got nice details on the inside of the actual armour system and everything else on there, and that's what we're saying about some of these actual parts, very finely joined onto the sprues and things like that. They're not big lump areas, but just general down in here on the spring system, things like that. Very nice details as ever. But again, all the ejector pins seem to be either flush or slightly recessed, apart from the ones which are really out of the way, like this little guy up here, but then that's down and out of the way, it's not going to matter at all. So that's actually very nice. Okay, and then got this little guy down on here. Nice busy sprue as ever. And that's what we were saying with this one on E. As you can see, we've got the exhaust system down on here, which is very nicely done. We don't have any burring on that really at all. That's very finely done. Just a tiny little seam. A quick rub will take care of that, no problem at all. The actual tow cables themselves, quite nicely done. Not the best in the world, but actually they're not too bad. Okay, the actual hatch, things like that. It's got the bolt detail and all the bits and pieces. We don't sort of have any anti-slip texture, but we're assuming it probably would have had some of that somewhere, but perhaps not so much on here. And then generally, we can probably walk it up the screen, as you can see here. All the parts quite nicely done. I can't see any sink marks or any problems. Got a big old 50 cal over here, no problem with that at all. And then some of these other parts, as you can see, nicely done. Again, these sprue tabs, they look quite big on this, but actually when you flip it over, they are rounded down, so they're not huge. They just tend to look it like these guys here are actually very fine because they're very flat. All right, so no problems with that at all. I don't think that's actually quite a nice sprue on there. And again, usual thing like these areas down on here. The inside of the actual sort of mortar hatch itself, there's no ejector pins or anything else you'd have to worry about. Nice good details down in there, so if it is in the open position, you'll be absolutely fine. There is ejector pins on things, but to be honest, these are out of the way and aren't going to be seen anyway, so generally very nice indeed. Tracks we'll have a look afterwards, I think. Okay, so some of the up armour on this one, as you can see, we've got some of the grille work and the various things going onto it that look quite nicely done indeed. So generally, no problems here. Can't see any real problems, but generally, looking around it, everything's nice and clean and crisp. No problem. This little guy over here has got very nice moulding detail. Catch it in the light like there. You can see that's beautifully done. So we've got a little bit of sort of anti-slip in the centres, but this bolts and all the textures on this are actually quite sharp. That's actually, you know, extremely rough to touch, which is a nice thing as it makes its way through. And then some of the other items on the bottom here. This sort of grille system can be a right pain to mould, and to be honest, there is the odd little bit of flash just in between it, but it's not going to be rocket science to pop in here with a knife just to clean them out. But because they are sort of this wave system as it sort of goes down, it is particularly difficult, I should think, to get that in and out of a mould. But generally no problem at all. Just being careful how you remove it. They are extremely fine, delicate joins on there. And to be honest, I think some of them are already off. I don't know, perhaps they're still on there, but they are extremely finely moulded into position to hold them in there. Just taking your time, snipping them off, probably one at a time, okay, just to make sure you're all good. But generally, all the grille work, apart from that, is really nice and clean on this. And we've got no flash or anything else in between any of these. That's really nice. The bolt detail goes right into the insides of the details as well. You can just see them coming through there, which is a really nice touch. And this other sort of system down on here, you can see how complex the moulding is on that, but it's actually come through really very, very nicely indeed. A sort of bird cage system all the way over it, but just the way the handles are on this for, you know, unlocking and locking it and things like that, they're actually really nicely done, very cleverly moulded into what is a very delicate but at the same time extremely complex part. You do have a little bit of flash down in here, don't forget there's going to be a little bit of cleanup down in here, but generally I think that's pretty nice considering the complexity of the shape and things like that. Very nicely done. Okay, so this little guy down on here. So this is the sort of side panels, and then obviously we've got the up armouring on the side and things like that. And when you catch it, you can see it's pretty devoid of details, but it has got sort of anti-slip onto it, onto the sides and things like that, but it's extremely faded into it. But they're not all the same. You've got different types of weathering into it as well. Okay, we've got the rear plate with obviously all the little location tabs for everything that's going to be bolted onto this one a little bit later on. Same goes over here. We've got the side area into it and obviously the ports and various things. Again, quite weird how this all goes and it's sort of stippled up as it is and everything else on here, but actually not too much of a problem at all. And then these guys over on here, you can see we've got all the sort of locating tabs for everything right the way down on that one, right the way over. And then in here you might see we've got loads of these that are going to need to be snipped off, but we're not going to see any of this, so that's not a problem. But all of those can be chopped off at your leisure, or pushed off even, and away you go. Because let's face it, it doesn't take rocket science to get rid of these things. Just normally just give them a wiggle like that and they come away. Alright, so yeah, pretty nice all the way through. But again, a bit weird how they have these on here, but you say you just wiggle them about and they come away and you're flush again, good to go. Okay, so considering it's quite a small kit, there's a lot to it. There's a big old box of sprues in here and all the rest of it, which is nice to see. Okay, so looking around on this guy, you can see plenty of stuff going down on here. Again, really very nice indeed. On E here, so if we start at the top, we'll work our way around it. Again, you know, a little bit of cleanup between the parts, things like that, but generally nothing a problem. These louver doors are solid, molded in one. Okay, but then obviously down in here we've got some of the parts, shovels, tools, things like that, and then obviously the equipment for the outside. Really nice indeed. Again, beautiful thing with Takom. We built quite a few Takoms now, and they are really very nice kits. They go together very, very nicely. No problem at all. Yeah, you can see we've got some big old ejectors in here, but again, they're going to be covered by parts, which is quite a clever way that it's actually doing it. The way they're sort of hiding these things away as they go right the way through. So if you did want to do a full interior onto it, again, it wouldn't be too much to do that. Okay, so this is a strange sprue. Okay, so we've got two of these, so we'll just get one out. Okay, so this is B. Okay, some really very clever. If we start on the top here, you can see how fine all of that is down on there. Some very small parts here, delicately moulded right the way through on that. That's actually very, very nice. So semi-hollowed out on these as well, but again, these small little parts all held into place very nicely indeed. We've got toe eyes and things on there, and pry bars and whatnot on that side of it. Pretty good. So we've got two of those. Okay. Then we've got the road wheels. Drive sprockets and things. Let's stick one over there. Okay, again, very nice details in these wheels. We've got lots of detail down in there, quite sharp as well to the touch, which is always a good shine, things like that. And then down here on the sort of drive sprocket as well, really sharp details, very crisp indeed. Then we've got all the sort of running gear down under here, the dampeners and everything else, return wheels, things like that. Actually, really nice detail. Again, I can't see any mismolds or anything hugely missing. Got a little bit of flash here and there, you can see it just down on here. Okay, little bits on there, but generally that's all okay, no problem at all. Well, almost last up, the tracks. Now this is the only thing is, I'm always imagining that after all these years of, you know, kit manufacturing, let's face it, we have come away from rubber band type ones, the vinyl tracks, which are pretty gnarly, but you'd still think, you know, because miniaturization and things like this goes, that manufacturers would work out, you know, semi-workable tracks, things like that, but unfortunately not indeed. So down in these are all molded completely in one, so we've actually got the rubber blocks and everything else all done in one. So we've got multiple strips down on here like this, and then we've got lots of singles to make up those all important curves, and then same on the other side. So you haven't got a ton of track on this particular guy, and if you wanted to, I suppose you could shortcut this purely because it's designed, because you can't see any of this in there. So if you wanted to, you could just miss out the top bit and just do the under rope swirl under it. Unfortunately with these, to be honest, we have got pretty much a lot of ejector pins running in here, so you are going to have to try and get in, I suppose, and take some of these out, because there is ejector pins on every single one of these. Okay, and then like multiples down on these parts as well, which I don't think is so much of a problem. Obviously if it's on the lower part and it's down here and it happens to be between two wheels, and perhaps using washes or pigments and things like that, you know it's going to then accentuate that ejector pin and you're going to see it. So you just make sure you take care of the ones you can see. The ones everywhere else I wouldn't bother, but if you are doing it, then just take your time to make sure they're taken out. But let's face it, a couple of swipes with a sanding stick, we'll have no problem with these at all. They're going to be absolutely fine, no problems at all on that one. Okay, at least there isn't tons and tons of them. So clear parts, as we know, this is armour, so clear parts, they are pretty good. In fact, we won't bother getting these out of the bag, I don't think, because they're only flat. So we've got, just imagine, lots of periscopes, lots of things going down on here. It's clean, crisp, No problem. And then I do like the headlights on these with the sort of Ferrell's lens on there, so quite nice indeed. And the up armour glass looks nice and thick and everything else for the sort of bulletproof glass. Very nice indeed. The periscopes all look good as well. Yeah, actually quite nice indeed. So there we go, that is the 432. I know loads of people want me to build this one, and because it's nice and small and compact, and I think we can do nice things with weather in this one, you can expect to see this one as probably our next armour build here on Flory Models as well. Don't forget, if you do want this kit as well, it is available via the PMM stores for members of Flory Models as well, at a great discounted price. So there we go, that is Takom's 432 Mk3 Bulldog in 1/35 scale.